I woke up this morning singing my blues away. Yesterday was rough, today is usually a little smoother. I dressed a little dapper, I felt a bit cooler. I looked a little happier, I'm trying to make it. Sometimes I fake it, put on a smile and do whatever they ask. I was hired to work stock, I had to take out the trash. I ain't get mad when I did it, next dollar, next day. Wake up, do it again, it's the American way. I ain't embarrassed to say, I'm working check to check. I'm robbing Peter for Paul, I'm paying debts with debts. Don't fret, we still living, no need to make a fuss. Hey, when the weekend comes, we still turning up. After I worked all week and barely earned enough to take my lady out for all the fancy stuff. So Saturdays we dance till Sundays come up.
Creativity is required in many facets of our professional lives, but how do we improve it and harness it through sound? Welcome everyone to Bedroom Beethoven's episode 30, the podcast where I talk with the producers of such sound that promote creativity, and because they own bodies of work, you can talk to these figures, you can document and explain what you're learning to others. So this week I go through hour 1 through 10,000 with Grammy-nominated composer, musician, producer, artist, Kari Mateen. Plenty of work with The Roots, Jill Scott, STS, and the like.
It feels better on Sunday.
Before we get into that, head on over to bedroombeethovens.com, where you'll find all the episodes, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and if you're not tired of me, patreon.com/bedroombeethovens, and support your boy. As we enter the 30th episode of this podcast, my hope is you like it, because the more I talk with these guys, the more I learn about myself and life. I am your host, Cello. And
it's the Bedroom Beethoven Podcast.
Nope.
I know that you're a Philly native, but your life actually began in California. So what was that upbringing like? Like, are we talking like L.A. hotbed of talent, or are we talking about like the suburb?
No, so I was born in Bakersfield, California, and that's like, it's a smaller city outside of Los Angeles. It's kind of not in the middle of nowhere. It's like you can pretty much pass through Bakersfield to get to, Oakland or San Francisco or to LA, you know what I'm saying? So, a lot of, I guess, transient type of, movement through there. So I lived there for only a short period of time until we moved to Georgia. Our family was moved to Georgia like around when I was 3 or 4, but I obviously come back to California to see family every summer. So most of my summers were here in California. And then, but I was raised, went to school in Georgia.
Oh, you want to know something crazy? And this is recent. I read a story that small businesses in Bakersfield are playing ABBA on the loudspeakers based on customer feedback to discourage panhandling and loitering. Does that sort of behavior kind of surprise you when you're referencing Bakersfield?
I mean, it's an interesting town, man. It's like, it's things going on there, and it's just a weird kind of place, you know what I'm saying? So that wouldn't be outside of my I'm not surprised. I'm just like, all right, yeah, do what you got to do,
Well, so what like made you move to the South? Were your parents moving for jobs?
Yeah, pretty much. I think at that time, I was born in '86, so LA wasn't looking too great. So I think Georgia looked a lot better. Also, my uncle, Taurus Mateen, he was like performing a lot down in the South in the jazz scene there, and just kind of going up and down the East Coast. So I think that maybe, made my dad think it was like a good place to go. You know what I'm saying? I think it was, though, long term. Well, obviously long term, but I think that was the reasoning, just opportunity.
And then he introduced you to the Philly scene.
Yeah, later on in life. It was like maybe like 16 or 17, maybe even earlier than that. It was maybe like 14, 15. I remember being around, the Philly scene, like 37009, this band. And then this whole street was on 23rd and St. Albans had like Mel Chaos Lewis on there, like.
Was crowded at the top, cause I'm on the tip, and that's as high up at the top as a brother could get. And how I do it make a lot of motherfuckers upset, but it's fine. Re-jizzle and I'm back for mine. In case y'all getting tired of the same old shine.
It was crazy. Scott Storch was living around that area at the time. That's where they recorded Sixth Sense. I remember that day when they shot that film there. So that block, they were doing like, parties back there back in the day where Questlove, he bought his house. So. Yeah, it was cool, man. It was really, really good energy.
Well, I think that there's no mystery in life. I think any job, any passion in life, whether you're a painter, a poet, a musician, or even a politician, I think being gifted alone is not enough. So sure, it's nice to be talented. You don't need to practice that much, but at some point, it's essential to put in some hard work if you want to build your foundations properly. Your dad came from that era. He's a gifted musician. You're a gifted musician. I bet he did not play around.
Yeah, I mean, I think early on he definitely wanted me to play horn. I remember being really, he being really kind of pushed in that direction. He was like, yo, let's get this horns right. I remember getting trombone, and my brother was playing trumpet, and he was on sax, So that's the horn section right there, So I think he always dreamt of us being in that type of outfit, but him and my mom split. I still wanted to do music, but I was just influenced by just other teachers. So at that point, I ran into this woman named Ruth Einstein. She's an amazing cellist. I think she's living in Minnesota right now, but at the time it was in Georgia. She really influenced a lot of what I love about music, the hard work, the practice that, my dad's kind of instilled in me was easy to translate to her. And she, I think, really appreciated that. So when I came into, the orchestra class, it was all work, we wasn't messing around. So that's good.
Well, what were you doing for work when you first came to Philly?
For work, I was working at this place called the Ritz Theater because Questlove's mom got me a job there.
Oh, wow.
That was fun, too, because I ran into some really awesome people, like real artistic people that, because it was like an art movie house. It wasn't like, I grew up in Georgia, and it was like we only saw the big films, you know what I'm saying? Terminator, blah, 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 all those big films like that. So, yeah, I was like, wow, what are these films? What is this? Like material. I was like, because it's like, man, this is awesome. This is a different side of the film world.
That place, I'm familiar with that place because it has historic value. Did you know that like Mark Cuban plans on buying it and merging it with the Landmark theaters that he owns?
Oh, wow. Didn't know that. Yeah, I remember at the time when I got fired, I was like, they were moving in a different direction, I think, at that time anyway. So it was, and also me. So it all worked out.
Well, I guess this is a broader distribution of film content because you have Netflix and Amazon. They're interested in buying the Ritz too, or theaters like this. I hate that theaters are going away in the same vein, like that I keep my vinyl collection alive. Whether we're talking about movie theaters going away or physical music going away, no matter how you look at it, streaming services are the primary cause. And streaming is changing the way generations are experiencing film. Younger generations are more accustomed to Netflix and Amazon than they are to going to places like the Ritz. Do you think that's bullshit, or do you attribute the cause to a decline in film quality, or people aren't buying music because there might only be one or two good songs on an album and that's it?
It's hard to say. I think, you're right. The whole streaming landscape does make it more accessible for people to create and consume content. I think I was always a person that wanted to be a part of some of the things that were happening on a larger level, and not really being able to have that access for what's happening right now to the landscape of streaming and music. I feel very liberated by the fact that there are so many platforms. I don't agree with every platform's method of, whether it be royalties or, even some of the things that they stand behind, but at least that they're there and it's not like a monopoly that it seemed, before that. That's pretty much my feelings on that.
Well, I know you dabble in film composition, and when you hear about like Mike Shinoda from Linkin Park doing the score for The Raid or Trent Reznor doing the score for The Social Network, like when we talk about even the legacy of like Curtis Mayfield, are we going to mention the soundtracks for Superfly and Trouble Man last? Probably. It's less remembered, but equally hip. Now, when thinking about like the history of musicians turned film composers, it should make total sense on paper, but for some reason, hiring Hans Zimmer over Prince just makes more sense, even today. Does it just not translate well when composing for film? Like, do you have to pivot your skill set that maybe a lot of musicians don't have in their toolkits?
Well, I mean, okay, so this probably like this year, I probably will complete 6 films this year. And then last year, maybe about 5. And I think that makes it a little bit different from just making music for yourself or another artist, like the record industry. I just think that there's certain emotional things that happen where you have to have a little care in how you approach it. Sometimes, like, say if I'm working on a documentary, that you can't have, like if it was, certain people have styles, right? And they, might want to do a certain thing over, like some dialogue or action, or styles play a big part in why certain musicians work better for films. And then if you don't want to change your style a little bit to fit the film, I don't think it works a lot of times. I think people like Hans Zimmer, do something completely different to a action scene than Prince would. But he's been doing it for so long, and really because he's been doing it so long, he's created what the sound of what that is. So, and others like him, if you're going to go back to like Bernard Herrmann and like it's, and then we can definitely get into it, but I think certain, styles just work better for film, and just because of the history of what has been done, but that is kind of changing. And I think, for like, if you look at trailers, how trailers sound now from 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, even the people who like narrate them are changing too.
Yeah, I was about to say that. I don't hear like In a World. You don't hear that anymore.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing. It's like how, I mean, yes, it's changed. And then obviously these are all marketing tools, for getting people in the theater. The music that you use is a marketing tool just as much as the actors, just as much as all that stuff. They all play a huge role into it.
Yeah, I'm glad you explained that, because I was just thinking, like, you take someone like Elton John, who has a mixed relationship with film soundtracks. The Lion King was one of the biggest successes of his career. It went like diamond, but you never hear him talk about it. Or Eric Clapton did the soundtrack for Lethal Weapon. Nobody knows that. It's crazy.
Yeah, right. I mean, I'm not saying that a musician can't, like, someone who's working primarily in the record industry can't do a movie score. I just think if you say you are a composer, then they're going to be like, all right, cool, you're a composer. If you say, like, I am a singer, and a director is looking for a composer, they're probably not going to think of you first. They're going to think of, someone that is a composer. So maybe people don't know that I do, composing, or maybe they see me as an artist. But I think that's just a sign of the time, really, about, what you do, what you're good at. I think I keep saying this. I've been saying it for years. It's to whom it may concern, honestly, is the way that I have been dealing with a lot of stuff. Some people think I just mix engineer. Some people, think I'm just a cello player or bass player, or, I think if someone wants you, they're going to ask you. If other than that, it really doesn't matter. Someone's
It's crazy,
trying to get
though,
it done.
if I spend 5-10 minutes Googling you, I know that's not the case. That's all it takes for someone, is just to take 10 minutes to know, not to put this guy in a box. Yeah. It's a little disheartening.
Well, it's like I said, that if that's the only entry that you want, like, if that's the only thing that you want to do to know someone is to Google them, you're probably only getting 30% of what they really are. I think what you're doing right now is more valuable.
What gave it away is, like, if I go to your SoundCloud, the tags for your music range from dance to EDM to rock to electronic to jazz and blues to hip hop, R&B. It only took me 10 seconds to realize, like, whoa, this guy is Prince with the instruments.
Man, I wouldn't say that, but I've definitely stood right in front of Prince and just watched him play. I was like, man, that is why he is who he is. Man.
Well, this puts us, you're still not old enough to drink. You're working in Philly and you get your first placement at 19. What was that experience like?
I mean, I was drinking.
Well, legally. Yeah.
In Europe, perfectly legal. It was just the States. No, it was a good time, man. It was a big shock because that, like, going back to the Ritz, that's the day that I found out that they were going to use some of, one of the songs, or at least record one of the songs, is the day I got fired. It was really cool. I was like, I got fired from the Ritz, and then I started walking to the studio because that's what I did every time I got done with the movie theater. And, like, I think Richard Nichols called me. He was like, yo, go to Sean G's office. They got something for you there. I was like, all right, cool. And I was like, damn. I was like, man, this is the best day and, like, weird up and down that I've had in a long time. So that was cool. And it was a lot of work to get to that point for them to, I think, really just believe that I could do something for them. And, it was real cool. It was a good day.
That's dope, man. And the song, that I think resonates with a lot of people, Better on a Sunday. I think a lot of people relate to it because it's blue collar music. I myself have indeed paid debt with debt. Hello, I'm an American. Yeah. But with you, your music, you don't shy away from letting people know the lows of disappointment, the lows of defeat. Yeah. I wanted to ask you, like, maybe just, not artist to artist, but man to man, how do I take those moments to feel alive? Most people, they get into the fetal position, maybe they sink into depression, but you invite challenges into your life. You embrace the hardships and you continue to take risks. So I guess what I'm asking, what are we talking about here? Are we talking about relationship woes? Maybe there's a death in the family. What is an example of some low points that you're able to translate into the term that you use, braving? Well,
damn, man. I mean, if you want to, it's because I've been through pretty difficult relationship situations that had to be addressed. And being in situations, just making bad decisions, just kind of put me in a place where, getting out of that and wanting to get out of it was the only motivator that really brought me to where I am now. And it's still learning, though, too, man, because, like, living out in Cali, it's hard, too. It just never goes away. And understanding that it never goes away is, I think, the biggest, thing that I live with. It's just, there's no, like, like you asked me, how was that day? I think right after I had that, that situation and understanding that, damn, the Roots are about to use one of my songs. I think that the next thing that really, like, waved over me was like, damn, like, how do I do this again?
I did it all for the money, Lord. It's what it seems. Well, in the world of night terrors, it's hard to dream. They howling cash.
How do I get to the next level? How do I keep pushing? And that really brings you back to reality. And that's pretty much all I do all the time, no matter what I'm doing. If something good happens, I definitely go out and I hit it hard and I get up the next day and I'm back to reality. And the reality is that it takes a lot of work to make sure that, you're doing the things that you want to accomplish in life. And, you can't really wait around too much.
I'm glad that when you got fired from the Ritz, Quest wasn't like, man, my mom went out on a lib for you. You made me look bad.
Yeah, I mean, that's another thing too. Like some things don't fit. I don't even think he knows that his mom did that.
Well, we'll keep that between us.
Yeah, for sure.
Why highlight love and fear? Do they go hand in hand?
Yeah, they do. I mean, come on, man. Like, don't you have ever been on a roller coaster? You love it.
I have.
But you fucking understand that shit can break. It's like, that is it.
Oh, yeah.
And those two things together, that's life to me. You know, that's what it really is. That's why you make certain decisions. That's why you don't make certain decisions. And they go hand in hand.
You know, I don't think many people look at you and they say thank you. I think people enjoy your music, and that is kind of the thanks that you get. But as someone who has constructed a lighthouse for others, we recognize it, we hear it. This podcast is my exploration into the potential. And if you weren't so outspoken about bucking the status quo, perhaps creatives like me wouldn't have pushed harder to make things happen. So I did want to thank you.
Oh, man. Yeah, I really appreciate that. That's a huge compliment. You know, honestly, I think we all have to do our part to I forgot what video I was looking at, but it was pretty much, you know, the artists of the world, the writers, the creative people, you know, if we did not have this in the world, like, I don't see it really being that tight. Just to make it simple. I was like, you know, like, it's just like, wow, like, you know, when something tragic happens, you know, obviously there is a need for being able to address what making that situation better would be, you know, but then after, during, and that whole period, you know, music and art and people talking about it and sharing it and being together, that's what art does. Being a part of that is what I've really started to. I remember when I first started, I just wanted to be a dope producer, and it was like, man, I want everybody to hear my stuff. Now I was like, man, I want to be a part of things that just make other people better, no matter how small or big it is, or what I can do to help.
Yeah. Are you familiar with a musician named Yogi Horton by any chance?
I'm not.
So Yogi was a session drummer for Luther Vandross. And look, I don't mean to be morbid here. I'm very naive on the subject, so let me own that before I proceed. But you were a session drummer for The Roots, and you don't have to use yourself as an example, but Yogi Horton was a very, very successful session drummer for Luther Vandross. He came home one day, he went to his wife and said, I am so tired of being in this man's shadow. I can't take it anymore. And he jumped off a 17th floor window of the hotel. And that was it. Now, you don't have to use yourself as an example, but in this industry, do you see musicians who get jaded by not being in the spotlight? Like, I'm just as talented as Questlove. Why aren't I on stage? Or I can sing just as good as Janet Jackson. Why am I the backup singer? How does that parallel work? Because not everyone is as mature as you to be a sponge and to ask the right questions and learn.
All right, I got to start here. Wasn't really a session drummer for The Roots. More so, anything that I produced, I played drums on. Now, when it got to the point of where they, you know, where they would use, what would they use? Like, so I remember doing the production for it, playing on, you know, doing all the music. If Quest wanted to play on it, he would play on it. If he didn't, then it would just be me staying on it. And I want to make sure that's correct, because I think he's one of the best drummers of all time. And
am I like demoting you when I say session drummer? I didn't mean any disrespect.
No, it's not. It's not that. I think being a session drummer is probably like being a session musician, and then to call it the drummer, and then to say for The Roots, you know, he is the drummer for The Roots. More so, the production, anything that I produced, I played drums on, and it was maybe only one song that he redid the drums for, and I think that we both had a lot of respect for what the sound of the records were, you know. So sometimes he didn't need to replay it. It just sounded good, you know. So the drums stayed where they were. To answer your other question though about, you know, kind of being in the shadow, I think people do get in even for me, like I was working with The Roots for a bit, you know. I think I was on 3 albums with them, and for me it was great working with them, but it was, for me, where I am now, I just understood that I wanted to be giving to more people, giving to more situations. Being the star, you're really not the star though. You know what I'm saying? Like when you're, if you're a hit songwriter or blah, 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 you're not the star. Like the people who are consuming it are honestly the one is really benefiting from you. I mean, if you want to be, there's a lot of people at the very top that are probably really sad because they have to give so much. And, to me, I always wanted to be a part of a lot of other things, you know what I'm saying? Not just one band, one idea, one song genre. I just wanted to be a part of the world. Some people, if they don't get to that point, or if they never find that for themselves, I don't think they ever really wanted it, so to be a part of something else. And I've definitely seen and been around some people that are like, they want to be the star, you know what I'm saying? And I was just like, all right, are you really the star? Is it, or is it all the people around you making you that? My mom always said, it's like, Kari, you go to a event, and you say if you walk in and something bad at the event happened and you're trying to get out of there. And, you walked in the bathroom and you looked at the janitor cleaning the bathroom and he was like, you said something stupid to him and there's something bad happening at that venue. You think he's going to tell you how to get out of there or the exit door? Yeah. So, there's people out there that you can't just walk around in life and be like, this person is in the background or this person is the foreground. It's like, we are all on the same fucking ground, doing all the same shit and helping each other do all the things that we want to do. And so it's very hard for me to see the world as like, oh, that's the star. Because when I look at a star, I look at like, all right, like I remember going to a museum, right? And I'm looking at this painting and it's like, not a painting, but it's like a sculpture. And I was like, I want to walk behind it because I want to see how it was built. It's like, all right, this thing is in front of me, but then what else is supporting it? How is it made? How is it put together? And that's the part that people, I really forget. I think they really forget that. Really, really, really forget that.
Yeah, I see that, 10 years ago you worked with STS, 10 years ago you worked with Now. It's almost like a Martin Scorsese, Robert De Niro thing where you find people you gel with, you make sure that you stay a part of their life. You don't just farm beats out to people. Man. And you value those human relationships.
For sure. I think that's how you get good music. Yeah, it's a very big community of great musicians out there, and sometimes, you just gel and the timing is right. A lot of times it's not that I don't want to work with more people or anything like that. It's just, sometimes there's a great timing with certain things. And there's people that I haven't worked with in a long time that we just have great conversations with now that still inspire the music that I make. And even people that I admired back in the day that I never worked with, I still like to listen to their music and glad that I didn't work with them now because I listen to it and just I'm so inspired because we haven't had any crossbreeding, of like, oh, this is my style, this was your style, and we put it together. They just kept budding into their own style, and I'm like now listening to it and being inspired again. 10 years later, or 5 or last year, so. Yeah,
that's a good way to put it. And then people who are like, I would consider you a multi-instrumentalist, but a lot of people, they prefer that analog sound that you get from recording live with live instruments. Mm-hmm. They sometimes view making albums as a means to an end. Like we have to create this just so we can have something to perform. I think that's great because if you create an album, you can go back to the well. It doesn't have to be lazy. Yeah. Would you say that you're more of a performance artist than a recording artist? Because that perfect example was you released the acoustic EP, reworking some of the own tunes, so you're able to get more material from one project. Add a horn here, add a bandmate there. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of producers and musicians don't record like that anymore. That's really great.
I think they do, but I think everyone, a lot of people do, but they want to put out the most maximizing product first. You know what I'm saying? And then they don't really go back to it because, if they're working with a label or something like that. But most people, most artists at least the ones that I know, they're walking around like humming, and then like, that's the organic way, and recording it like that, yeah, it's amazing. If you really want to do it. See, so I mean, there are plenty. I think there are plenty of artists out there. I think that would like to do more experimental things, but because of certain pressures of like industry, I always say, you could do anything you want, like musically. Try anything you want. It's when you introduce money into it. That's pretty much the end of where the freedom began. It's like, all right, I need to make some money. Then you're like, all right, cool. Here are these fucking boxes. Start putting stuff in it because that's what's about to happen. And nothing wrong with that. There's a lot of people that are trying to pull themselves out of poverty and get themselves to where they need to be. And I have no problem with that. I'm just saying on the flip side of that, then that means all the things that you thought were free or being free, like as a you can speak your own voice, starts to slowly fade away. And that's just a real reality when it comes to the music business.
There's one thing wrong with it. There's one thing. DJ Khaled, who gets billed as a producer when all he does is guide projects on a mainstream level. And then,
well, isn't that production though? I mean, come on, man. Look, you gonna say that about Rick Rubin?
Oh man, you got me on that one. But it's just, Rick Rubin though, his choices are a little bit not so obvious because look, I'll use you got me, but let me use an example. Look, if I'm DJ Khaled, I'm gonna sit there in my room, I'm gonna be like, you know what, Post Malone goes on verse 1, Justin Bieber gets the hook, second verse is Rick Ross, I'll get a beat by Cool and Dre, I'll yell "We the Best" and watch it go to number 1 on the charts.
So you're saying Rick Rubin is like a college making a car, thinking about it, and DJ Khaled is Ford saying, all right, we're going to use this product from this manufacturer, blah, 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 blah. I mean, yeah.
Is that not fair to say?
That's very fair to say. And one, and they're both successful, honestly. There's a lot of different ways to create. I think one can't really live without the other, honestly, because there is. All right, so do you know how much it costs to create like a radio station? You know what I'm saying? That can pump out, or a tour bus or a venue or blah, blah, blah. So having one side of the industry, kind of fund and trickle down certain technologies, do you think if we stopped if we stopped making money back in the 60s of, changing technologies of how people can get speakers into their, without having a 60-foot console or tape machine, that anybody right now would be able to make any music without a huge industry. I think there are some things that have to change over time, but the technology has gotten more people into music, understanding music. Now, there's some things that have fallen to the wayside, but I think that's up to what I would call the historians to make sure that they keep in play. I think, maybe there aren't as many people playing guitar and cello than there were years ago, but there are some, and those people will become like the historians of like what that really means, that feeling, and those people will still be able to exist. I mean, I did a session with Post Malone a few years back, and he wanted real cello. He wouldn't say yo, pull up the keyboard and and those people would just find that love where they can.
Yeah, and you know what? I like the cello because it's like the tuba, where personality and charisma are things that you can feel immediately when you see someone on stage. But it's one of those instruments, and it feels a bit wrong that so many young cellists, they immediately want to be like soloists. I think like 98% of them want to be soloists. And first of all, like not everyone can do it. And I'm not talking about technical abilities, because there are more and more talented young cellists every year, or maybe not. But I'm talking about like the hidden part of the iceberg, things we don't talk about so much, which are with a musician, you got loneliness, and I think you got like pressure. So what was your experience? Did you follow the path? Like, you know what, I'll be a soloist, and if I can't, maybe I'll do recitals. And if I can't do recitals, then maybe so on and so on. Everything
changed when I moved to Philly and started working working with the Roots. I started using cello as ingredients to the music that I was making, using it as like, all right, maybe a little bit of cello here, learn bass, play some bass there, learn drums, throw that in there. And when I first started, I loved playing with the whole orchestra together. And every time we did all the solo stuff, I was pretty good at it, or working with like small groups, where there, maybe there was like a cello flourish in there, but it was more about the group play for me. Our orchestra, I went to Pebblebrook High School in Georgia, and that orchestra was, this just the sound of everyone playing together was just like, wow, this is like, when it was working, it was like really working. And then that's what I really loved. So I didn't really go the path of the soloist. Also, too, when I heard soloists, I was just like, wow, that will take a long time. And I was like, I don't know if I want to just do that, and so nothing in my life has really been just one thing. And so it looked very daunting to me to look at one thing. It's like, because I know how long it would take.
Some people say that the cello is the instrument that is closest to the human voice. Is that like a PR line? Or
I've definitely heard it. I don't know. And then we could, there's a lot of different voices out there. I don't know if there's 6 to 7 billion cellos out there, but no, yeah, it definitely has. It's definitely in that range, like from low to high, what a voice could do. And there's a lot of people that can, emulate and imitate, especially since there are no like frets on it. So, you can slide like the human voice does. And, the piano is a very specific, the note is perfect. When you hit it, it's played, produced the same way every time. And so the voice is not like that. It can, so microtonally you can do more, than what you could do on a instrument that has a set, key response or whatever, guitar, or, obviously guitar you can bend, and we're not going to get too technical with it, but yeah, the closest.
All right, well, I'll accept that answer. Well, man, look, I appreciate learning about your upbringing, navigating through, the 20s, and just learning about your process, man. Do things always kind of follow the same formula? Like flip the sample, then drums, bass, put some brass section, a little horn, bring the strings in, throw some guitar if needed, and then lay down some vocals, mix it, master it. Or it's just kind of like you're a chef, just adding ingredients to a stew.
I hope it's not like that. No, it feels every time I sit down, obviously there is no sound that comes out of the speaker. And then that's an opportunity for me to create a different experience for myself. Every time I sit down to make a piece of music, I would like it to feel like a moment. And so, because I think Quincy Jones said it, he's like, if you're not feeling chills, it's probably not that tight. You know what I'm saying? So I'm looking for that. I'm chasing that. And that's probably the biggest reason I don't do drugs while I'm making music, because
you don't need to.
I don't need to. And it's really the drug, honestly, the music is.
So every piece of music that I listen to, every album, every record, there's at least a few chill-inducing moments in there.
Honestly, anything that I put out, I'm like, yo.
Well, I know you're not going to put out anything subpar,
Yeah, for sure. That's the big thing. I'm chasing those chills, and I think also too, it's so funny because DJ Jazzy Jeff has kind of like the same chasing goosebumps. I don't know if you've listened to any of those records that they're making at the playlist retreat, but it's it's that same concept where you just want to get something that's like, man, dang, that feels good, So
I've never had a moment where I've cried. I've heard that that's like the Nirvana, the Mecca, but I've never listened to music and cried before.
That's definitely, I've been there, and it's really tight. I would say that. Like,
hopefully I'll get there.
Yeah, dude, it's not one of those things where it's like you're not even going to expect it. I'm gonna just tell you that right now. It's just you're gonna be in it, and you're gonna be listening, and it's just gonna happen, and it's gonna click.
Well, it gives me something to chase. I'm not going to stop listening to music.
Like I said, don't chase it, man. Just be and create, and then if it happens, it happens. It's cool though. For sure.
Dope, man. Well, I wanted to give you the opportunity to let people know about what you got coming on. I know you just released a project with STS. If you want to tell people where the
man. Just check that out on all things social and Spotify.
I'm feeling like I'm feeling 'cause I'm feeling I'm the best and nothing less than. I'm feeling like I'm feeling. feeling I'm the best.
Yeah.
And nothing less
Hey.
than.
I'm feeling myself. I'm feeling myself. Because I'm dope, I feeling myself. I feeling myself. They ain't give me no help. Tighten my belt and my laces up. Run with me, tighten your aces up. Try to tighten your faces up. Now even the haters can't hate on us. They wait on us. Debate on us. Whether or not.
And then, it's the spring collection. Really, really great piece of work there. Keep a lookout on the films that I'm doing. I can't speak on all of them. If you just follow me on social media, KHARRARI, and just kind of keep up to date with that. I'll be telling everyone about that. But I've done been a part of some amazing work this year of some great films. So
Update that IMDb page, man.
yeah. Yeah, hit me up on there. Check that out. And then, so after I get done with all of these films, I'm gonna start writing another record. Starting maybe after mid-November, I'm gonna start recording here in California, and I'm gonna take 2 to 3 months to do that, and then that'll be coming out next year.
Are you going to Japan with the I think it's the dedication tour?
Yep, man. I'm going.
I'm gonna be living vicariously through you, man. And enjoy the travel.
Show. Now, hopefully, you can do some shows here.
Well, I know you. I'm near Austin. I know you were at Stubbs not too long ago, so it'll happen.
Yeah, man. Oh man, like Austin, maybe like coming up next year. That'd be tight.
I'll treat you to some barbecue, man, on me.
Oh, please, I love barbecue.
Well, thanks, Khari, man. I'm humbled and honored for an hour of your time, man, and just thanks.
Yeah, man, it's all good.